Hi there, I'm James, and this is the Spiro Circle. This week, I wanted to do something a bit differently. I wanted to show you an old episode from a series on CTech called BiblioTech. BiblioTech was a short-running video series where I interviewed Israeli authors of their books that were getting released out in English as a way to get to know the author, get to know the book, and to discuss some interesting ideas relating to business, tech, entrepreneurship, or leadership lessons. One of those episodes was with a man called Yaniv Rivlin, who wrote the book Live Like a Startup. It talked about ways that we could transform our lives and adopt the chutzpah of the Israeli founder in all aspects to help us thrive through business or personal adversity. We spoke for about 30 minutes about his background, what inspired him to write the book, and how he found the process. I'll also include in the link of this episode the original story on CTech, where you can learn more about him and his journey. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, my name is James Spiro, and this is CTech's BiblioTech video series. I'm joined now with Yaniv Rivlin, the author of Live Like a Startup. Take the initiative and transform your life. Yaniv is the founding general manager of Bird in Israel, where he also ran the EMEA Government Partnerships department. Before that, he co-founded and served as the executive vice president of Comtribute, a company that provided organizations with an online platform to raise funds and engage with consumers. This week, in early September, saw the English release of his latest book, Live Like a Startup, Take the Initiative and Transform Your Life. The book, originally published in Hebrew, was a #1 bestseller in Israel and is available now for readers looking for invaluable insights on creating genuine, lasting success in business and in life. Yaniv, thank you.
Thank you for having me, James.
First of all, congratulations on the book. I understand it's coming out this week in English. It was a worldwide or kind of national bestseller. I want to start off by asking, please, why now? Why was now the time to write the book, and why was now the time for the English translation?
So the book actually came out, as you mentioned, first in Hebrew. It came out a bit over a year ago. A little over 2 years ago, I was starting to think what next and where to go. And I was actually went to like a work therapist, and we were talking, and then she told me, you have a very interesting story. Your life story is interesting, can inspire many people around the world. I said, it's interesting, but I also, don't know how to write, just graphic. I have ADHD. I can't write a book. And so then she told me that there's something called a ghostwriter, which I never knew about before. And that's when I started the process to write the book and write my story. And it's been an incredible journey. It took me a year to write it in Hebrew and then put it out also in English. And I felt that it was the right time for me, looking back after getting really a lot of multidisciplinary experience around different sectors, from the military early on in Israel to the nonprofit sector, to the public sector, to the business sector, which was my last 5 years, starting the shared e-scooter business in Israel, taking it to a #1 market in the world, and transforming there, and understanding that there's a lot of value in my story that can hopefully help guide people. And that's why I also decided to write and to call the book Live Like a Startup. Because I think that in the end, we all need to live in our personal lives like a startup. And we can go more into what that means. But in the essence of, yeah, sorry, go for it, James.
Yeah, no, sorry, that was wonderful. That's exactly what I want to do. I'd love to, for the folks that aren't so familiar with Israel being a startup nation, but also startups generally, that they're a crazy, chaotic time. So for me, when I saw the title "Live Like a Startup," I thought, "Oh my gosh, live like a startup? That's crazy. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be all of these things." So, what does that mean when you say "live like a startup"? I mean, we're going to start really basic. What does the title mean exactly? What does that look like?
First of all, it's totally chaotic, but also our life is chaotic, right? Our life is chaotic, and I think one of the things that I talk about a lot throughout the book is getting into that state of fear, right? When you start a startup, right? You take a risk. You go into that state of fear. You have that, and if you look at the cover of the book, it's a roller coaster because our life is a roller coaster like a startup. Um, but only if you actually go into that state and you treat your life as a startup, you get into that state of fear, right? Every startup has that. But only when you get into that state of fear, then is where you actually learn and grow as a person. And it's inherently that point of fear. And if we look at that in our life as a startup, that it's actually good to get into that state of fear. It's actually good for us to take a risk. I chose the metaphor of an amusement park because I've never hopped on a ride that I was disappointed after that I hopped on. But I didn't hop on rides which I was disappointed that I didn't hop on, because from every ride I learn. Like every startup, you learn something new, you grow. And when I look at my journey and at the new world today, it's great to hop on those rides. It's great to create many different startups. Get out of your comfort zone, like you do in a startup. Use a little bit of a dose of chutzpah, right? Use that, and it's a lot that also Israel taught me a lot. There's a reason why we became Startup Nation. We became Startup Nation out of that necessity of really taking that initiative, taking those chances, hopping into, because of the environment we live in and other reasons that we can discuss. But what my thesis is, we should treat our life also like a startup, because if we'll treat our life also and live like a startup, we'll get to places like Dr. Seuss says, if you leave, you'll get to wonderful places. And it's the same thing.
No, it's amazing, and I really like that idea you touched on about doing the things that maybe you're scared of or that may bring failure or disappointment, because no one regrets the things that they do. People regret the things they don't do. And so I think that's a big thing, what you say about getting on that ride and that roller coaster, and something you said just now about the healthy dose of chutzpah. I love that aspect, and I wanted to touch on it a bit more. You do address it a bit. What does it mean for those who may not be so familiar with the term chutzpah, may not be so familiar with what it is to have it, let alone a healthy dose of it? What is it, and how does it impact our lives?
I'll take it from a story that I also write in the book. But chutzpah to me is to me, there's always a way. Okay, there's always a way and to get things. And once you understand that mentality, a little bit of chutzpah is taking that step, being a little bit, getting out of that comfort zone, willing to do that. I'll give you an example that I read in the book, which also one of the reasons I called the book "Live Like a Startup." So I happen to, by the way, almost everything, and I write about it in my book, almost everything I failed first attempt. I failed first attempt, but most of the people, when they fail the first attempt, they don't try a second time. They don't try. They say, okay, I failed the second time. But like most of the things, I got into the second time. So I got into the second time a program at McGill University. I got into it second time, failed the first time, arrived there, met a person that told me to apply to Harvard. I applied to Harvard. A kid, my story is that I grew up in a small town in the north of Israel, 3,000 people, town Pleasantville, if you would say so, and grew up from there. So I never thought about Harvard as a potential place. Encouraged me to do so. I applied. I got in to Harvard, but I didn't come from money. I didn't have money to spend on it, so I had to get a scholarship. So I found this scholarship called E. David Fishman Scholarship from St. Paul, Minnesota, which I would never find if I wouldn't have looked and through the communities. Found that one Israeli every year gets it for political science, economics, and law. Israelis in the Ivy League in the US. Applied, okay, got to the final stage. They called me back and said, me and 23 others are in the final stage. Get on WebEx. We're now doing this on Zoom. Do you remember WebEx? That was like
That's a
12
bit
years
before my
ago.
time, I think. Yeah.
It was a Cisco company. That's how you used to do video conferencing. So they told me, get on a WebEx. Dan told me, get on a WebEx. I said, Dan, I can get on a WebEx, but is it okay if I come to you to Minnesota, December? He said, listen, no one has asked to come to Minnesota, but if you want, sure, pay for yourself, come pay for your hotel and stay. So I paid $480, hopped on a flight from Montreal to Minnesota. December in Minnesota, you don't want to be there. It's freezing. I stayed in Motel 6, 1999, didn't have a budget, arrived to the interview, and got the full scholarship to Harvard. Now, I maybe could have gotten otherwise, but that chutzpah of asking Dan to come to Minnesota to hop on a flight, not just get on a WebEx and do what everybody does, that's the chutzpah that I believe got me that scholarship and that was the only way I could actually study at Harvard. And I think that is an essence of not taking things for granted. Okay, not taking things as someone tells you. Someone tells you something, you do it. And I think that's also a difference between when we think about you, right? If you have a crazy interview now to do that 20 amazing reporters are fighting for, of course you're going to fly to that place and do that step and take that extra mile, right? But why, when it comes to our life, we don't live like that startup? We don't live like that business. And that's the chutzpah that we need to have in our everyday life to understand that if we have that dose, we can do everything.
You took the initiative and it transformed your life. To take from the title itself. So I know in the book you also include excerpts from other people as well who have either administered a healthy dose of chutzpah or seen success or experienced failures. Some of those people are Nusir Yassin from Nas Daily, famously, former Israeli MK Stav Shafir, and Olympic gymnast Netta Rivkin, among some of the people you include. Can you talk a bit about who you included, why, and some of the things that they chose to share with you for this journey?
Yeah, that has been one of the things that I'm most grateful for. And I thought when I was writing the book, I never wrote a book before, but I thought it would be really interesting and fascinating for the readers as well to add other people with tips. So I thought who would fit in every chapter that I talk about throughout the journey. So Nas is a great example. Nusayr Yassin, you mentioned he was a friend from Harvard, the undergrad when I did graduate school, and Nas's heading to his chapter is remarkable from my perspective. We're more than just numbers. That's his heading. Nas grew up in Arabe, which is a small Arab village in the north of Israel, and Nas grew up, didn't have the grades, because in Israel you need a certain SAT and different stuff. And if you grow in the periphery like me and him, you don't really have those opportunities. So he went to Harvard, wrote an essay on how he's going to transform the world through technology, which he did that later, and got a full scholarship to Harvard. And the rest, you can read about him everywhere. And his thesis is that we're more than just numbers. Like his numbers there, my numbers, I failed the psychometry, which is the Israeli SAT. I got probably an average minus score, 534. I'm an English speaker. I failed the TOEFL, which is the English exam. The GRE, I probably got the worst GRE score that anyone has gotten into Harvard. But as Nas writes, I believe too, and I put that in that chapter, we are more than the numbers that we have, and we are very holistic. And each one of us has a portfolio of what they bring with and what they gain throughout life. And I think Nas's example is a remarkable one.
No, that's amazing. And I noticed that out of those examples, and first of all, actually, I met Nas a few years ago in New York. He's a wonderful guy, and it's really great what he's been doing and everything like that. I noticed you gave examples of tech, politics, and sports, these areas where people really can excel in any aspect of their life, any form of professional areas. What can business leaders, those who are entrepreneurs, the founders of the startup, so to speak. So if we're going to kind of make it more tech focused for now, what are some of the really core lessons that they may learn? Maybe they're on their first startup, maybe they're on their fourth startup, maybe they've had a few behind them. What are some of the lessons they can really take from a book like this?
I think one of the big things is to not afraid to fail, right? Not afraid to fail is a key takeaway that I think once you fail a few times, it is inherent in the way you operate, which I think is a big thing. I also think that one of the things when someone starts something, whether it's tech or other, I think the most important thing for someone is to understand first and foremost what they are good at. What is their superpower? And understanding that there's no one leader. It's a leadership team. And when you understand what James is the best at, you also understand what is the first hire, which is always the key hire that you need to bring into your team in order to create the best startup ever. I'll take Bird, for instance. When I started,
is that? Oh, sorry, I was saying, who is that hire? What is that a position? Is that a person? Who is that exactly?
Position and a person. So if you, and it's the combo, right? Because if you, James, are good at, you're a great CEO, right? But you're not a good communicator. You are, but you're not a good communicator. You will bring that chief communications officer that will enable you to excel. And that is super important. For instance, if I look at Bird, that I started here, the first global market that became number one market in the world. I wasn't an operations guy. Like I then wasn't. So the first hire, understanding my core strength is bringing Naji, bringing that operations on the ground person and being able to delegate in a way that is the most useful for me. And a lot of people sometimes tend to take someone or someone that is more like them. When actually you need to bring who is the person that will complete you. What is that team that will complete you? And also understanding and being humble and understanding that you don't know everything. And you can't know you can't do everything. One of my core values in life is outsourcing. I believe that outsourcing is one of the most important things. By the way, this book, I wouldn't talk to you right now if it wasn't for outsourcing, because taking Anat to be my ghostwriter, that is the only way the book came out. And I was, in a way, humble enough to understand that I don't know how to write. So I need to bring that added value in order to get to that place. And I think as a leader and someone that starts something, understanding what to bring, what people in what positions is the key for success.
Yeah, well, that sounds amazing. So it's not just identifying your strengths, but it's also identifying your weaknesses and saying, actually, where am I lacking here? How can I complete this process and fill in those gaps? Great, Yaniv. But finally, where can we get a copy? What next? What next for us? Where can we get ourselves a copy of such insights?
Thank you very much. You can get it right now on Amazon. So it's out in pre-sale on Amazon. Maybe by the time this episode out, it'll already be out and running. But yeah, if you want to add the link, it would be great. Live like a startup. Yaniv Rivlin. I hope again. Got to Israel. I was truly humbled by its success, getting to number one in Israel. It actually Bibi Netanyahu's book. It took it out of the bestseller. So I passed Bibi in the bestseller. So I really hope it'll have similar success abroad. I think the strength of the book really is that it talks both. I've had people that are going into university, and I've had CEOs of leading companies read it and say that they've taken something. So I think it's a book that really talks to everybody in certain and different points in life. But the lessons are the same for us in the beginning, throughout, and after.
Yeah, it definitely seemed to me that the lessons could apply to starting up a company, or it could be to becoming a parent, starting a family for yourself, becoming an Olympic athlete. There are so many ways that the lessons like this could be applied to so many different areas, which is why I found it so interesting to live like a startup and not live life like a government or live life like a like a sports team. I love the startup analogy, and I love the way it ties into Startup Nation and the relationship there with Israel. Yaniv, thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you the best of luck with the release, and I can't wait to hear how it all goes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so, so much for your time.